Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishna here. Basically, we are discussing one of the topic that is city creation. City creation, basically, we are discussing one of the topic that is vitamin creation. So, vitamin creation is very dangerous topic, and city creation is more dangerous topic. Why? Because vitamins basically are connected with the human industry, medicine industry, medical industry, healthcare department. In short, basically the healthcare department we can say, because healthcare department only creates the human needs also. So one of the person told that blood groups, blood cells group owner basically is very dangerous role basically. You have to play very dangerous and very peacefully basically, because you can't basically lose your mind basically. Because if you are losing your mind, then basically the 150 crore basically are going to get effect. That's why basically this group basically always keeps mind peace as possible as, but their mind also basically gets effect basically sometime basically. But their secure their caring group basically takes care of that particular group, and the example basically we have already taken basically. In this rough basically I will take one small example again. One person basically got the problem. It basically goes to the human needs department, because that person basically purchased the these that basically, for that basically money gets spent. So the group basically who says that basically this person is not supposed to solve basically problem, basically his problem is not supposed to solve, they basically keeps the track of that particular person that basically his problem is not supposed to solve. For that basically they use the data science project, and data science project are basically used in negative side and positive side, both side. So human needs department, currency departments, medicals department, peace department basically comes very later basically. Then basically the technical departments, friends groups, then basically the these groups also basically connects, and these groups are connected with the governments basically. So just see basically how chain basically are connected. One problem basically converts to very big basically. Companies department basically. For example, this person basically is working in one of the company basically, or basically that person basically has worked with the set of company basically. They also basically tries to solve the problem. Each and every chain basically tries to solve the problem. Then basically at last basically the earthquake department also comes into the problem, into the picture basically. They also basically tries to solve the problem. Then also basically the problem doesn't solve. Then basically the at last basically the case is given to the army group. Army group means Indian police department. They also basically tries to solve the problem with the help of this group basically. That is the local mafia groups and the loafer group basically. And then basically their group basically also connects like this only basically. Then also basically the problem basically doesn't get solved. Then basically at last basically connects to the international courts. International courts also basically use their data. Then also basically the problem doesn't solve. So just see basically the problem solving chain basically is getting increased, getting increased. But then also basically the problem doesn't solve. If basically this whole group basically doesn't solve the problem, so it might possible that basically one new basically group comes into the picture, and they solve the problem basically. So there basically the new one more solving department comes into the picture. Then basically the at last basically the international courts comes into the picture, that basically connects to the World Bank also basically. World Banks also. Then basically the union groups also basically comes into the picture. So international courts comes into the picture, and then basically they solves the problem basically. And if by chance basically the international courts also basically does not solve the problem, then basically they might possible that basically this they basically creates problem to that particular person also international level, and they basically might try to kill this particular person also basically. they might try to basically, if basically by chance, if by chance basically they are trying to kill the problem. Assume that basically, I will take one example. One person basically, see basically up to what level thing, UN basically, that is called as a UN department basically, United Nation group basically. So see basically up to what level things are going to connect now basically now. UN department, United Nation basically, United Nation department basically. So assume, I will take one example basically, but this is the real story basically. This is real story. One person basically done the marriage. Some problem basically happened with the first wife basically. That girls basically taken that basically very seriously, and then basically they killed his generation basically, killed that boy's generation basically. That basically through Nasbandi basically. When he was basically sleeping, that time basically the group basically, that the first marriage group basically done his Nasbandi. Then basically they have done the Nasbandi, that's okay basically. Then basically the Nasbandi has done, that means what basically? That means his future basically is ended basically. There is no need to do marriage. If he is doing to do the marriage basically, then he can't basically start the generation only. So nowadays basically what basically the government say basically, अरे भाई इसका generation तो आगे बढ़ने नहीं वाला. Then why basically we required to give him some money, this that basically, why basically we required to give him money basically. So they basically not gives the money, but this person basically creates issue basically to solve that problem basically. So this person basically converts the problem to the issue basically. Then basically the problem basically connects to the currency department, because he is not getting the money basically. Peace group department, temples groups, friends groups, then basically these groups connects. Human needs department, then army department. This everything basically we have already saw. Goes to international court, then basically it goes to the, assume that basically that lady basically which has done the plan of Nasbandi basically, she is very rich, connected with very rich people, that is the Tata groups, Ambani group basically. Assume that also basically. And Ambani group means by default it's Hitler group basically. Ambani group means, that means basically they are connected with the Hitler group basically. So assume that basically they are connected with the Ambani's group and Tata Birla groups basically, and Mittal groups basically. Assume that also basically. Now basically the UN department basically what they do basically, they are going to solve the problem basically. They will not solve the problem basically. They will try to kill this particular person basically. They will try to kill that particular person basically. Assume that basically they tried many times basically. They basically attempted 5 times basically. The 5 times attempt basically, information basically passed to this group also basically. That is the, this group basically, person's group basically also got the information that basically the, even the UN department basically tried to kill that particular person basically. That is this person basically, because his Nasbandi was happened basically. If he will do the second marriage basically, that is going to affect to the first marriage group, that is the rich family group basically, and that rich family groups are basically connected with the Ambanis and Tatas basically, and Mittals group basically. So the UN group basically tried to kill the particular person basically, because they got the information that basically they are going to the Ambanis, Tatas and the Mittals group basically are connected with that particular girl basically. So that might create problem to UN also basically. So that UN only basically gives the order to kill this person basically. And in this basically killing basically 5 times attempts basically has done basically. And in this 5 time attempt basically, and Ambani groups are directly connected with the Hitler group basically. That basically we are going to discuss basically what is relationship with them basically, with this group basically. Then basically Tata groups basically that are basically connected with the Brahma Kumari group basically, and that basically connects to the government basically. So governments also basically connects with the rich people basically. That is basically, poor people basically can't live in this world basically. So see basically the problem basically connecting to the universe also basically. That also basically we are going to see how basically the universe also connects to this problem basically. Then basically what happened? this person's basically 5 attempt basically has made